Can call the meeting to order. And then, did you guys see the minutes from the last meeting by any chance? And so, for those of you who haven't done this yet, because we didn't approve the minutes for the November meeting, which we will do in the future, but we'll look at the minutes and then, make sure there's no, nothing we need to add or subtract from it, and then we approve them. So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting. You just need a second,
I second.
okay? And then I guess going down to, we'll just kind of skip down here. We have two presenters, Sarah Sternling, who is a former esteemed Conservation Commission person who did a survey a couple of years ago. And then I think Bill White, I believe he's going to be able to be on. We'll talk about some modeling he's done for modeling pollution plumes underground. And I thought that might be sort of interesting, based on our discussion last meeting about the proposed senior center. But I guess on our new business, item 1 on the agenda is, does anybody have any questions on roles and responsibilities at all, or any initial questions and what we all do? And I thought we've done this in the past, but we have two tree experts, we have a Canoe Brook Lake person, and so on and so forth. And then on these topics, if there's a topic or two which you all would like to be the lead on, and then all that requires is to draft a document, meet with one or more of us with town manager on the specific topic. And one of them, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, is 1,000 trees. And we'll talk about that in a moment, but Tim emailed a note he got from Dimitri on trees. We'll talk about that, in a moment. But I thought that way we can sort of, share in the fun. Maybe there's a topic you're interested in, and then kind of take a lead on that. We're limited into what we can do without a quorum, but we can inquire and talk about things, informally with others. Let's see, item 2 on the new business is, what do people think about having your individual emails on the town website, or we could have one email, for the Conservation Commission?
My vote would be we have one email. I've already, put in a request to change my email. I'm just going to set one up personally just for the Conservation Commission for myself. But if I would vote that we have one email for the whole Conservation Commission, we can access it.
Okay. Yeah, that's generally.
I would second that.
Okay.
I took a quick look at this, and it looks like what we can probably do is make I don't know what the town's policy is on this, but we might be able to just make a Gmail and have it forward out to folks. Gmail has pretty robust filtering, and it should be, we can use it to send the whatever comes in out to multiple addresses. But I think having individual accounts, making a separate account, I'm guilty of this, I haven't done this yet, making a separate account specifically for commission business is a good idea, just on FOIA terms and things like that. So I would encourage everyone to do that.
Okay.
Including myself.
Now, Bill, can we just, start a email? I mean, I can just set up a Gmail account, try to make it like Trumbull Conservation Commission, or if it's available. Can we do that? I know when on Sustainable for the QR codes, we did a couple of years ago, the town wasn't keen on that because it wasn't official.
Yeah, let me think about that. If we're gonna allow it, I would definitely need to have control over that.
Okay.
But I can speak with you about it.
Okay. Now, I'd be happy to, but if to make it official, if you want to set it up, that'd be great. Then we'll have one, and then we post it on the website. Now, would that be forwarded? I know the town you know, when I've got a couple messages that I can't open them up because I'm not part of the town. Would that be forwarded, like it could be forwarded to my email, my Gmail account, or how would that work? Or would I have access to that with a secondary person?
We used to have the ability to set up an internal email that forwards, and that doesn't work anymore. And so what most people have done sometimes there's a staff member on who's assigned to your commission, and that person will then receive email at an official, town email account and then forward it out to the rest of the commission. You guys don't really fall into that category per se, so we'll have to think about it.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. So I guess, we'll end up, with one email that'll be on the website. And then, once we, what that is, Bill will, get it to us. And then, because the town, for a good reason, they, want to make sure that there's not much of a chance of it being hacked. And, Gmail is pretty secure, but the town is, I know from a couple of years ago that it was pretty tightly controlled about that, for good reason. Let's see, and item 3, wetlands issues of interest. I haven't had a chance to check their upcoming agenda. I'm not sure if anybody has been to IWWC website to check on what their agenda is. However, Janet, who is as close to being a member of the Conservation Commission as you can get without being on one, she sent a letter on several sites, and see, Barbara sent that to everybody yesterday. And there's, several sites on here of interest, and there could be other sites on the inland wetlands. When I get back in a couple weeks, 2.5 weeks, I'll follow up with them.
Richard, I had a question on that. How has the commission handled that in the past? Because I noticed that one of the issues she was referring to was already at governing authority bodies. So I'm not sure if it's beyond our ability to advocate.
Yeah, we can. I mean, once a decision has been made, it's too late. But we can, we've written letters as a commission to, wetlands. We can go on site walks. We've done on site walks. And on those site walks, we can, voice our concerns. I mean, they have the authority. We can also go to their meetings when there's public comment. And then we can, we've spoken for a site and we've spoken against, sites. And so we feel strongly that the more, Conservation Commission members that can speak, the better. And if you all have neighbors or know people in the area of these sites, the more people will speak, the better it is. It's not always, one thing about these meetings is logic does not always take place. And there's certain regulations that are not always logical. So, one has to go through the regulations. If something doesn't fall in a regulation, even if it doesn't make sense to prove it, then they have to go under the regulations. But we can voice our concerns on that. And there are sometimes gray areas which they can vote no or yes on. Now, does that answer your question or not?
Yeah, no, that did. I was just wondering what the protocol was, and specifically that woman, what she's expecting from the commission. That was a little unclear in the letter to me. Has she also addressed this to the Inland Wetlands Commission, it sounded like, already
actually,
to me?
Yeah, Janet's been, she's been basically on essentially all our meetings now for, a couple of years. She's helped with some funding. And so, she's also, because she lives in the area of some of these sites. And, I've talked with her, Old Dyke Road has a couple of sites at least where, let's put it this way, contractors don't exactly follow inland wetlands best practices. And so these are very frustrating, but these are things that, I mean, what she's looking to do, this letter is sort of an update on these things and things that she would like us to take a look at, which we will. Because in Trumbull, I mean, we have our assets are the trail, trees, and our lakes and water bodies and the Pequannock. So these are some of the main areas, some of our major responsibilities to try to protect those things, so they sort of don't get worse. And so take a look at this, and then if there's anything specific you have comments on, we can email each, as a commission back and forth, make plans to attend the next meeting. Now, if any of you have a chance to look at the inland wetlands, you can go up just if you typed in Trumbull IWWC, I believe it will pop up. Then look at under meetings or schedules, and you can see the agenda. We can't, unless it's a public comment, we can't list, if they're discussing and stuff, we can't pop up and make comments unless they're asking for public comments. But if it's a site, even if it's not a public comment, if you have an interest just going there and just listening, that can be a good experience. Especially for new members, and some are interesting, but at times it's very frustrating because they don't always exactly do what makes sense for the long-term ecology, but it's just the way it is. And so we've had successes, and we've stopped a couple developments, and some we have not. It just is what it is. So I think, everybody look at this letter if you haven't already, and she does have a link on here. If you have an interest, check that out. And I mean, Janet's on here right now. Well, actually, she has her hand up.
Yeah, it's Janet Epstein, 76 Old Dyke Road. If you don't mind me speaking, is that
No,
okay?
not at all. Sure.
Okay, I'm just speaking from experience, but usually the Conservation Commission gets the applications before the Inland Wetlands Commission meets. I'm hearing that maybe you did not get the applications this time. I'm open to being corrected, but that has been my experience, that you have access to it before the public does. So that's point number one. And I don't know how that was orchestrated, but that was my experience.
Yeah.
Okay. The other, to address Mr. Greenwood's comment, I do live locally, and I'm very familiar with all of these parcels. And to your comment, Richard, we are hoping to be able to get sufficient number of petitions to make to get a public hearing on number 4 West Misha Road. The application is being presented next week, and I believe we will be able to speak to it if we get sufficient number of signatures at the meeting thereafter, which I suppose will be April. And I do really hope that that the commission will take an interest in these 3 properties. As you said, number 5 is beyond repair at the, pardon my language, is beyond repair at the moment. But number 4 is coming up again for a vote.
Yeah, Janet, do you have has anybody drafted a letter from your neighborhood yet on this? Oh,
We will be doing that. We have 14 days to gather 25 signatures to request a public hearing.
okay.
And
Would you?
We plan to do that.
Okay. If you email that to me, I'll send it to everybody as a draft.
I don't know
And
that
I-
I don't know that I can disclose that, Richard. Let me think about
Okay.
that and we can be in touch about it. But
Okay,
no, we're basically just asking for a public hearing and the reason why we were doing that. And I can just quote you briefly if that would help. The basis on which we want to have a public hearing. I had it here somewhere. Okay, and I'm quoting from the DEEP website. Let's see, interference with the wetlands and upland review areas of this parcel will have the likely effect of, quotes, unreasonably polluting, impairing, or destroying the public trust in the air, water, and other natural resources of the state, unquote. That's where
Hmm.
we've got at the moment. And again, your input on all of these applications is always extremely valuable. And I hope you will continue to be involved as much as possible.
yeah, what I'll do is I'll go up and see what I can find on the website. Do you know if Tatiana in engineering is involved with this site?
Of course, she's
Yeah.
involved with all of them and she's wonderful.
Yeah. And yeah, sometimes, we have to actually go to town hall to get these.
See,
I think Mel they may have sent them to her. I may have to, set that up. Says Mel Long, the chair, I may have to work on just setting that up so I get those directly. But let me see what I can find out about that. Because obviously, if their people are against or for a site, then they should be heard, especially if they're neighbors. And then, so that's definitely a good thing.
I mean, this is a very sensitive parcel. They
Yeah.
both are. And number 4 has a very large proportion of wetlands, and I'll be interested to see how they've revised the proposal. But you guys are the experts.
And thanks for, keeping us informed on all that stuff around one of our major lakes.
Is this going to be on the March 5th meeting?
They're presenting the application for number 4 next week, yes. I believe I understand there will not be a vote on it at that time. And, I think as you all did in the past, the Southwest Conservation District was involved in prior applications. And, I would value your input on, how you think it's best to conduct a review of this if we manage to get a public hearing.
Okay.
And is
Yeah,
there
stay
any
tuned for
comment?
that.
Is there any comment, public comment on March 5th?
I believe not.
Would anybody from the commission, could any of you be at the meeting on March 5th? I'm going to be in Florida still on March 5th. And even though you couldn't talk, at least you could, see what they're talking about and, maybe get some information that might be useful.
As Bill knows, it's also going to be, well, as you all know, it will be recorded if you can't make it. But I would love it if somebody could be there.
Okay. If somebody can be there, it's at 7 o'clock. I believe that's going to be in the town chambers. Is that true? Janet, do you know if it's going to be oh, you're muted. Let's see.
Sorry, guys.
It's okay.
It's a Zoom session as far as I'm aware, although it hasn't been posted to the public yet.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true, so I have to wait.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, which meeting are you talking about?
Inland wetlands next Tuesday.
That will be on Zoom.
Thanks, Bill.
As a matter of fact, Bill, can you forward me that? The link for that, is that possible?
I believe the link is already on the town website,
Okay,
but
I'll
I'll
check
send
it.
it, I'll send it to you.
Okay, thanks. And if I'm, say after my schedule, I'm not on the road, if I'm available, I'll be on that Zoom. Now, Bill, are they, last one I was at that was actually in person, are these, how many, in general, how many are in Zoom and how many are in person, or have they changed back to Zoom?
Some commissions have decided to stay on Zoom, and probably I'd say maybe about half and half.
Okay.
The other half is meeting in person, and
Gotcha.
typically when they're meeting in person, they're all in person. Then when they're on Zoom, they're all in Zoom.
Gotcha. I mean, normally we'll have our meetings, live, assuming COVID doesn't get to, to a higher point again or something, but generally we'll try to have most of ours in person. Anything else on, wetlands issues at all? The next topic, number 4, is Sarah Sterling, who's a former, CC commission person. They did a survey a couple of years ago. So she was going to present an overall summary. And the importance of this, was to get input on what town residents felt on topics that will be applicable to, Conservation Commission issues. It was a very informative survey done online. We had some QR codes put up so they could have an easy link to the survey, and things were compiled, but I'll let Sarah talk about it. And then I guess, Sarah, do you want to share your screen, Sarah, or are you just going to talk verbally?
No, I was going to share my screen and share the presentation that I had made last year.
Okay. Yeah,
Or maybe
thanks for
2
doing
years at
that.
this point.
Was it 2 years? I think it was 2 years, but time
It feels
flies.
like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. You can see my screen, I assume.
We can, yes.
Okay, I'll see if I can go into slideshow mode. Okay, yeah, 2 years ago it looked like. So we wrote this survey, and the important thing to understand with the survey is that you can definitely write a survey to get what you want out of it. And we wrote a survey where we wanted to get plenty of comments and support for the idea that people in Trumbull cared about conservation and sustainability types of topics. So we did this as the Conservation Commission in partnership with Sustainable Trumbull. And in the end, what was really valuable about having Sustainable Trumbull's partnership was the ability to get respondents. And so one of the most difficult things about fielding a survey is not writing the survey or looking at the results. It is getting people to take the survey. And so lots of word of mouth and posting on Facebook and reposting and posting anywhere that we and partners could think about posting, and Sustainable Trumbull was a big part of that. So the goal was we, in concert with, Earth Day, Earth Month, was to do this survey while people were starting to think about going back outside and interested in trees and in natural kinds of topics. You would do something where you want people to think positively about nature at a time when they're actually able to go out and enjoy nature. Unless I get page down. Okay. So the goals of our survey was to get data, not just show up in meetings and talk about things, but to get data to understand what really quantify what people wanted. And then, you guys have a lot of goals, a lot of things you want to do, and you have limited resources. So the question is, how should you spend your time and energy with those kinds of limited resources? So we were trying to understand priorities. Okay, so it was a quick survey to take, 10 questions. Most maybe 5 minutes. We had put up, Richard commented on the bottom right here, these QR codes. We put these up around town in all the parks. We, like I said, put it out on any social media. It was on the town website. We had 435 responses. which I felt really good about. Our goal was really only about 200, 250, so we exceeded our goal. Mostly people who lived or worked or both in Trumbull. When we presented this to, I'm sorry, it slipped my mind who we presented this to, but we presented it to somebody who said, I don't really care about people who neither live nor work in Trumbull. They're not providing us any taxes. They're not providing any real benefits. So I don't care about them. In the end, it was such a small number, it didn't matter, but something to keep in mind if you do something like this again in the future is you want to focus on people who live in town. So at a high level, what we found from this survey was, of course, the people who, the kind of person who took the time to take a conservation and sustainability survey were interested in conservation and sustainability. I mean, that's sort of a, we knew that was going to happen. If you took the time to take it, that you cared about. So the kind of the top things that came out were conservation of open space, interest in quality of water, and then tree and green space conservation. Also, we did ask about development and development in concert with conservation. Someone asked earlier, what is the POCD? And this is a good timing to ask that question and good timing to be talking about this because the town by law has to do a plan of conservation and development every 10 years. I believe they've already had one, maybe two of their 3 working sessions. And certainly what we learned here is that conservation matters, but people also want to have some good economic development, and we'll get a little bit more into that. And then there was a lot of, we had the questions, they were kind of basic and straightforward. There was a ton of write-in answers. And, Richard, if you have the original presentation, you can forward out the comments to the group, or I can send it back to you if it's not handy. But many people did take time to write a lot of very thoughtful answers. There were also a few very cranky and crackpot answers, but that happens. So when we presented this, to Vicki, and I had created a few kind of high-level slides about what we found. So some is going to be a tad bit repetitive, but about 80% of the people who took the survey said natural resources should be a top priority for the town. I thought there was this one great quote that, this one at the bottom here, this one great quote that kind of speaks for all of how the trees, water, and open space work together to protect wildlife and air quality. Really a lot of buzzwords in that, or really important words of what matters, all kind of grouped together, and it speaks to how everything is interrelated. Specifically, the areas that people wanted to focus on were conservation of open space, maintaining trees and green space around town, and quality of water. There were 3 questions that we asked that really spoke to not just what do residents of town want to experience and what should individuals be doing, or what should the Conservation Commission or Sustainable Trumbull be doing, but what should the town itself be doing? And so the blue is a very important and the orange is important. So you can see for all of these questions that covers at least 75%. People want the town, for town planning across all departments, to think about preservation of natural resources, that a tree replacement program when there's development or loss of trees, and that the town follow the laws and recommendations that everybody else has to follow. So I know Richard White has a special place in his heart for this question, but I would say when we share this with Vicki, she did get her hackles up just a little bit in terms of she felt, I think perhaps that there was an implication that maybe the town isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing, but this is just information, and perception can become reality. And then when it comes to development, and the fact that there is a thing called the Plan of Conservation and Development, meaning that those 2 things are not independent goals, and they do have to be thought of together. What we found is The 1 out of 3 respondents did say that economic development should be a priority, but not too much. And so, there's concern about the overdevelopment. And so for it to be done thoughtfully and integrated with conservation was another big finding of the survey. So, Richard, I do have the rest of the questions. I could go through them one by one, but this is kind of the high level summary. So I could send it out later. I know you probably have a long agenda. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Yeah, no, I think this is good because this is, one of the more important things, we can do is to educate people on, the major things. Basically, I think surface waters and trees in Trumbull, because those are two of the things that are great assets in Trumbull. So I think it was really informative. Sarah, I think because we, have some new members on this, I thought it'd be very useful to hear that, give you an idea what we can do.
Great, and I'll send you, Richard, this presentation. Like I said, it's got another many pages of the actual questions and then all of the write-in answers. And I think that the write-in answers really do provide, like what you see on this page, really do provide a lot of context and inspiration for, what people, took the time to tell you they care about. It really is more, you get a lot more of the emotion.
Yeah, so good. Does anybody have any questions for Sarah at all?
No, I thought that was very helpful, Sarah. Thank you.
Great. And when you see the rest of it, if you have any questions or you decide, I do have some of a marketing research background. So if you do decide you want to do a different survey, I'd be happy to help out.
Okay, good. Sarah, well, we'll keep you in mind about that.
Hey, Bill, hold on, Richard, Sarah, real quick, because, we're trying to come up with the program for planting trees once we get beyond the parks. So I was going to reach out to you and talk to you about how to model a survey to talk to residents about, what the options would be for planting trees in front of their house, how much they're willing to get engaged with the aftercare and those sort of things. So is this something I can call you about and we can talk?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do that.
Okay, great. Thanks.
I think that'd be great, Tim. So again, this is, one way that we can communicate, with the public and, get best practices into people, particularly, where there's sensitive ecosystems, waterways, and of course, trees. So I think this was good. Let's see. So
Thanks, Sarah. That was great.
yeah, thanks, Sarah. And feel free to stay on if you want, but I appreciate what you did. And you're a great member on the commission because you brought a background that none of us had in your marketing background, which was good. Because basically, marketing is important. We have to sell what our best practice is, and so it's all. Marketing is really important. And we're doing a lot of things. And so I have a feeling that we'll be seeing Sarah again.
Yeah, I'm happy to help out. I just have a complicated family situation that makes it difficult for me to be as engaged as I'd like to be.
Yeah. And if you want to be on, come to the meetings, or when we have Zoom, just let me know. And, Bill will just send you a link to the Zoom anytime you want to be on.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Next topic I just talked, very, very briefly, is an update on the senior center, Hardy Lane location. And, Richard did his presentation, pretty much what he showed us at the last meeting. We met with Southwest Coordinator for DEEP, and then our Trumbull State Representative, Dave Rutigliano. And he was mostly tied up. But the bottom line is DEEP is going to contact the town. But Richard and I spoke briefly after, and we didn't sense the amount of enthusiasm we would have hoped for. Yet they are going to move forward and contact the town, basically to review the data that's been collected to date. And then we would like to encourage the town to obtain more subsurface information, because without knowing, the zero edge and better defining the polluted and contaminated soil, and those are two words that mean something in regulations. One is worse than the other, and it depends on the concentration of the various pollutants and contaminants. But so we'll stay tuned on that. Let's see. I wonder I'm not sure that Richard could be on here. Let's see. Oh, he's here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Richard. My laptop, I can't see everybody at one time. Do you want to say anything more about the video we had with Deep?
No, Kevin was very capable, asked some excellent questions. I think he agreed with Richard and I that additional phase 2 type environmental testing needed to occur out past where some of the deepest fill and the contaminated fill had been found, and wasn't seeing was going to reach out to George Estrada, who's our Director of Public Works, to learn some more. We shared with him the phase 2 environmental site assessment and basically the presentation that I gave to this committee and to others. The other part to this is there is someone else in another group that would be interested in the stormwater management aspect of this. I was a little concerned that one of the reasons given at the 824 planning and zoning meeting was that currently there is no stormwater management at Hardy Lane. I actually don't know if that's true 100%. I don't believe there's storm drains at a minimum down Hardy Lane. And that in the future, there will be a stormwater management plan. If I apply that to the development off of Daniels Farms, the Enclave development, that used to be 100% forested land right along the Pequannock. It had no stormwater management plan. Today, it has a stormwater management plan. That's not a net positive. But Kevin was going to put us in touch with the right person at DEP as well.
Yeah, I think this is important because obviously, what Richard has done is he looked at the GIS so he could superimpose the land features, historical aerial photographs over what is currently known about the underground, pollution. So that gives us kind of almost a 3D look at what is on the site. And I mean, GIS, geographical information systems, are very important for doing this. Now, Richard, were you going to give a short presentation on what you've done with the plumes?
Well, I have shown it to this commission in the past. I can show it at a future meeting. I'm actually further south than you are at the very last minute, and I'm not in the US, and I am apparently being blocked from accessing one of the things that I need. I can describe it briefly, and then if you think it's appropriate or of interest. There are all sorts of plume studies that are done whenever there's a spill, and engineering files like a phase 2 go out and measure the depth to bedrock, depth to groundwater, and the size and the extent of the plume. So there are companies that have been working, my company's been working with one of them, and that has been developing a way to model this information almost like an AI. So they took 90 to 120,000 actual plume analysis that had been done where they're digging holes and doing all these measurements. And they know the chemicals that were involved, and basically they have a model that predicts how far and in what direction a hypothetical plume at a specific location would travel. So if you look for environmental concerns and you find near your property there is an old gas station, if there had been a LNAPL release or a DNAPL release, and I'm not going to explain those letters, maybe Richard can. DNAPL's not going to go, they're plumes. denser and lighter. Denser is going to tend to sink to the bottom of the groundwater until it hits a restraining area, and lighter is going to tend to float toward the top. They can also model metals and give you an idea of where that would go. So groundwater typically follows surface elevation. However, as groundwater gets close to a water supply, like a river, so imagine you're up in Kent and you see the hills up above you. What if there was a gas station up there and some sort of release? You would sort of naturally think it's going to go and head toward the Housatonic River. That's not always true. As it gets close to a segment of river, that segment of river can either be pushing water into the groundwater or pulling water from the groundwater. And we know for most of the segments of river in the US, whether or not they're and it's called something, I forget the word, whether they're pushing water into groundwater or pulling water into groundwater. So if it's pulling, and most of our streams in Connecticut are going to be pulling from groundwater, or groundwater is going to be feeding those streams. Most of the that's most of the time in Connecticut. That is going to speed up. So it's going to speed up whatever elevation, surface elevation is doing. So groundwater is going to tend to go a little bit further and a little bit faster. If the river is pushing water into the groundwater, then it's going to be the opposite of that. You could also imagine if there's a change in soil type and the water is coming from here to here, and the change in soil type, there's a bounding layer that's higher than the elevation, then that's going to slow down the groundwater. And if it's significantly lower, where the clay layer is or an impervious layer, bedrock is, that's going to speed it up. So this company's taken a whole ton of data, and they can create these little plumes, and they're directionally oriented. It's really sad to say they look like guitar picks, but they basically look like guitar picks. You might have a little curve toward them. But it gives environmental professionals a very simple tool. And I would suspect most phase 2 environmental professionals, phase 2 engineers, phase 1 engineers can be standing somewhere and have a good idea of what direction a plume would go. But it gives the layperson or a more junior environmental professional a quick tool to say what might happen here. That data can then be used, that model can then be used to say, I think we need groundwater sampling at these locations to make sure in advance you're finding that far bound. And so I thought there was a lot of discussion with Hardy Lane. It's adjacent to very steep slope soil and adjacent into the Pequannock River, which is fed by groundwater. So elevation is going to be speeding it up. Soil type is going to be speeding it up. The fact that the Pequannock is pulling water from groundwater is going to be speeding it up as well. So you'd imagine a plume would go a little bit further, a little bit longer.
Yeah, so I think this is just, I mean, Hardy Lane is one of those sites where something like this, if there's more data, could be useful. Normally, pollution is not normally something that we're involved with. Usually we're involved with sites where they want to build something where they shouldn't. We try to encourage people along surface water bodies to not plant grass and not cut down trees and so on and so forth. But this is still something to think about. There are sites, and this is what I did in my profession, not the mapping, but being involved with pollution and so on. I mean, if we see a site along wetlands, whatever it is, we think about, was there a gas station in town? We don't have a lot of factories, or somebody had a buried oil tank from 30 years ago. These are things in the back of our minds, could be a concern. And if we did know there's a buried oil tank in a site near the wetlands, and we knew some of the history, we could then make that known to inland wetlands. They would know about it, perhaps they don't. So this just kind of gives us an idea of, what to look at, besides just simply, are we protecting, the wetlands and conserving the ecosystems in our town.
Richard, could I
Yes.
tie something to what Janet was talking about before?
Sure.
I've applied to be an intervener and it's something that any commission, any member of the public can do for the Hardy Lane property. And what that would allow is that I could ask questions at planning and zoning or any land use decision-making, process, including wetlands. I was informed that I'm not allowed to be an intervener on town loan development because, and this is a bizarre technicality, there is no appeal past the 824 hearing process. So if you were a commercial developer trying to propose this, you could apply to be an intervener, or even a residential developer, you can apply to be an intervener. But for town-owned properties, because there's no appeal, although there is with town council, but that doesn't count. There's no court appeal. That request was denied. If there were to be a wetlands hearing, a public wetlands hearing, I would be able to apply, or anybody would be able to apply to be an intervener on that project.
Now, Richard, how does it differ from any of us who've spoken for or against sites? And of course, we could speak up at any town meeting as a public comment, not just, wetlands. It could be any town, the town council, any town group has a public meeting we can speak up at. But how would that differentiate between us presenting versus an intervener?
So if an architect for development, and if that hypothetical development, if it was commercial development, and you were allowed to be an intervener at a planning and zoning meeting, so not town, but a regular process. If an architect said, and there was fill on the property, and the architect said, we're going to remove all the fill, I have to wait until the next public comment to ask, what do you mean by that? As an intervener, you can ask the architect a follow-up question. What do you mean by all the fill? What do you mean by when you say there's going to be stormwater management? What do you mean? Are you going to follow the new draft guidelines, or are you going to follow the current guidelines?
How does one become an intervener?
It's very similar to the passage that Janet read. You send notice to the developer and the commission, and make that request.
Okay, good.
I do think what's interesting is that in town, I think it's in the Wetlands Commission's rules. The public with 25 signatures of registered voters can request a wetlands hearing.
Good. That's good to know.
Yes. Yes, that's what we're going to do.
Me too.
Yeah. Good. So I think, the new members in particular are kind of getting a flavor for some of the stuff that we have done and can do in the future. So our goal going forward is looking at sites like what Janet has here and other sites besides a Harding Lane site that comes up. Probably majority of the sites are somebody wants to put a deck. It's a homeowner. It's really not a big deal. But there are some sites that are big deals, and these are some of them that are. So this gives us some idea of, how we can, more empower ourselves, to try and make ourselves known. And we can present at meetings, we can write letters, we can do surveys, we can do brochures. The only thing is sending out a brochure one time is great. A small percentage will actually read them, but the more we send these out and the more we duplicate this, the more people will hear it. And so this is like a long-term project. But we have a small town with some very important things to protect. So this is good. Yeah, thanks, Richard, for this, and I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Thanks. Sorry, I wasn't able to give a live demo. Some of you have seen this before.
Yeah. But the concept, is important. That this can be done, and food for thought for us in the future. Let's see, moving right along here so we get this thing done before midnight, haha. Item 6 is a budget. Now, unfortunately for me, I had my first case of COVID, it was very mild. So I was not able to attend the meeting, but Tim was and Mel was there. So Tim, if you can give a, a brief rundown on what your meeting was with Vicky on our Conservation Commission budget.
Yeah, so Mel, Dean, and myself met with Vicky and her staff in regards to the budget for this coming year. Discussed our goals, what our accomplishments were. It was pretty a pedestrian meeting. We don't ask for a lot of money, so I think everything went well, and I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be able to get our allocation of funds for next year.
Okay, now do you know what the next step will be? When we have to present next on the budget?
I don't know. I'll wait to hear from Cindy Katsky. I don't know if we have to do anything. I think, like I said, it's not a lot of money, so I think it's a pretty pedestrian request, and I don't think it's going to be much of an issue.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for going. Sorry that I was laying around. It's probably good I wasn't there because I didn't want to give anybody COVID. I didn't know I had COVID that day. Next day I did, so.
No, the meeting went off a little bit on a twist, but Dean got in there, twisted some arms, and we got the money, so.
Okay, good. And obviously the biggest part of it is 1,000 trees for Trumbull. Yeah, this is over multiple years. So, good. And actually, Cindy did, email us about the first meeting, well in advance. So, I can touch base with her. See what the next step, if there is one. And let's see. So just a brief reminder, 1,000 trees of Trumbull is the biggest thing on there. We all have, there is some money for us to attend professional meetings. And of course, there's nothing new, I don't think, on the 501c3 being converted to a special town account. So that's something, we'll stay tuned about. That might be a slight asset for us. And I mean, Janet has been very helpful in, 501c3. We try to get her to be on the Conservation Commission, but she essentially is a member without being a member, but she's here all the time. Anything else on the budget?
That's it.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Next topic is on, I can share my screen. Let's see if you can get back to this is the Metro Cog draft plan. Did you all get that? I think hopefully you did. And actually, I'll share my screen. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this. I think on here, there's 3 things. Oh, first of all, this is just some of the town commission groups were asked to comment to Zoom, Bill, comment on this draft.
Richard, I have a
And on
copy,
here-
but I don't see it on the screen.
You don't?
No, but I mean, I have a copy if everybody else sees it.
Let's see. Let me try it again. Can you see it now?
No.
No?
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, I'm not sure about my internet connection, maybe slow.
There it is. We have it.
Okay, so the Zoom quit unexpectedly, huh? X out of that. I got a crash report, which I'm gonna ignore. The only thing that really applies 12, and I don't see anything on here,
Richard, if you can hear us, we've lost you.
okay, I must have crashed my internet connection. So basically, the items 12, 13, 16, I don't see anything in here that we really need to make comment on. 13, for example, expand green space in trees, and we're already doing that. 12 is conserve land while promoting smart growth. And this really pertains to a climate action plan, pertains mainly on to help reduce, climate change issues. And the only third one that would apply to us is climate friendly land use. And what came up for me is a Hardy Lane site, putting a senior center there versus keeping it as open space as the original purpose would be. So just, FYI on that. Hopefully you got it, but there's nothing really we need to do about that.
Richard, can you send that to everybody anyways, or?
I can. I thought I'll send that to people.
All right.
Yeah. Again, it's a draft, with 1-page table, very high level. How can we in Southwest Connecticut, help control climate change? So again, 12, 13, and 16. I'll put that on the email.
And it was on the email with the agenda. It was the third item.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Dean.
You can.
So are they asking for public comment?
Just, if anybody has any suggestions to change the language on here, you can email it to me and then I can compile them and then send it, I'm drawing a blank as who sent this to me, but I have it on my email. But I just wanted to make sure that we get comments back to them. I'm not sure. Again, I'll go back to my notes and make comments. So if you have any comments, send them to me over the next couple of weeks or so. But basically, it's things we're already doing. But, if there's a word you want to add in here, if there's something, another topic we could potentially suggest they add another comment. But to give an example, 12 and 13, 12 is conserve land while promoting smart growth. 13, expand green space and trees, and that's under carbon capture issue of climate change. And the other major climate change, which is sustainable growth, involves, land use, i.e. climate change. And there's other major, climate change factors, but these are the ones that we would fall under. But I'll email it to you and I'll mention those 3 topics. I think with new idea, number 8 is ideas for new 2024 goals. Unless anybody has anything, I think maybe to keep moving along, we'll skip that for next time unless somebody has any issue. I mean, we have a lot of topics here. We're going to be working on these brochures on waterways. We have a survey that Tim is going to do. So one of our most important things is to, educate, town residents, especially on sensitive areas, on how they can protect, the ecosystem in our town. Things that make Trumbull, Trumbull and Trumbull great. Number 9 under new business is to get volunteers to be on Sustainable Trumbull. And I thought there were two, but it may only be one. And we have one person, was Dean, was that you who volunteered to be on Sustainable?
Yes, I said I would be happy to join their meetings.
Yeah, appreciate that. What I'll do is I'll email, their equivalent of the chair, and I'll copy you on that, give me your email. You may find it interesting, maybe especially with your background, because there's more on the sustainability of our entire town. Not they overlap with conservation, but they talk about affordable housing, energy, and so it's waste management. They've been successful in getting certain things on our transfer station and other places to put other things to recycle. And I mean, the QR code on the transfer station is one of the initiatives from Sustainable. So you may find it interesting.
Good, thank you.
Well, thank you. Let me make a note here to myself. And then there's one new topic for new business. And that's the email that Pam Roman sent out. And she's been on both groups. And what she's looking for in her email is somebody, I'm gonna quote this, somebody to take over the 1,000 Trees for Trumbull email address. And so there is an email. There's at least a couple of people who've sent emails last year. Is there anybody interested? We have, Tim, and let's see, who else was our tree actor? It was Tim, and was it Ed?
Yeah, I don't think the other person's here. We haven't met them yet. I'd be willing
Okay.
to take a look at it. But is it a town what kind of email is it, or email address?
It's just simply an email that was set up, and people can inquire about trees. I don't know much about it, but what I'll do is I'll email Pam and copy you on it, and put her in touch with you, because you're one of our tree gurus.
Right. Just I'll email her. I'll give her a call, because I kind of want to understand what the criteria is for it.
Okay, good. And then again, that as Bill was mentioning, to have an email on a town group, there's more scrutiny put on that. I don't know if this is, follows the town email protocol or not, but it may be meaningful. There may be a couple of things to reply to. If it hasn't been approved, through Bill in town IT, then we may have to ask Bill to give another email for that, unless we potentially have that email as part of our Conservation Commission email. That's a possibility too. That might make more sense, since we're sort of, coordinating the 1,000 Trees for Trumbull. But, ponder that.
Okay. Yeah, because I'd rather have it associated with the Conservation Commission than have it, rogue by itself.
Yeah. Let's see. And now for old business. I mentioned this is basically, public education outreach. We now have Dean on Canoe Brook. And so I'm kind of envisioning, Dean, Janet. I would be happy to be on that to kind of coordinate these brochures. We've done past brochures, Dean, and you and I can touch base about some on the website. Some I have, I put up on Dropbox, under my Dropbox, and some will be on the Conservation Commission website. But this is good to coordinate this we can update some of these. We can send them out multiple times. We don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. And so one of the big things around lakes is to have a natural buffer along the lake so we don't have, beautiful one type of grass species all the way down to the water. So we would like to have a buffer. Also, trees are important things. And then, try to minimize pesticides, things like that. So, we can all get together on this. Potentially, we could meet offline, come up with some coordinated ideas on going forward. We can capture, I'll copy and print out the old brochures.
Good. I think meeting offline is good because not everybody needs to be involved in the conversation, but I am under a time here. So the first meeting I need to be prepared for is on March 5th. So I'd like to go with a stack of brochures on that date if they're available somewhere.
Mary, oh my God.
Mary Isaac has them.
Thank you, my dear. She does. And please include the letter, the 2023 letter from the Conservation Commission and Inland Wetlands, which describes the regulations for the town.
Okay, so put that letter in the brochure.
Absolutely, because the brochure does not reference that.
Good. Okay.
And what I'll do is I'll look on the website. I'll also email Mary, and Dean, I'll copy you on that.
Yeah,
and
I was on an email with her, so I think she's already made a connection with me. So
okay, good.
Good.
And if you're, feel free to, email her directly on that. She's very, very useful.
Right.
And a town council, so she could reference. So then, I'm back by the middle of March. And if you guys need to meet, offline, but going forward, you have your current deadline, and this is going to be an ongoing thing with conservation till the cows come home. And the best thing we do is try to get people, X% will be interested, a lot won't, but the more we get it out there in something which is easy to read. So this is, one of our more important things that we do.
Right. And just for your information, Canoe Brook it's very contentious right now with proposal for dredging and what have you. And so there'll be hot tempers, but that also means there'll be a lot of people at these two meetings coming up. So I that's
which is good. The more the merrier. People
right.
speak up for or against.
Right.
And I think in doing that, like when I was at the Hardy Lane meeting, some people were speaking politically, and threatening politicians. And I think that's not helpful. But if people can voice their personal concerns, why this is a good thing or a bad thing for themselves personally, for the lake, that's probably more useful. It's all about marketing. We talk, Sarah was great on that, but so it's marketing, and it's not to get our voices heard, to yell at people. It's to market in a way that may convince people. That's not always easy to do.
Right.
I think keep it's simple and concise, non-political, but fact-based. Is how you're going to help or hurt this particular site. And then a good thing to remind people is one of Trumbull's assets is trees, water, trails. That's one reason some of us like being here. But I think that's, so that'd be great if you can touch base with Mary on that. And she's got a great connection, conservation and sustainable as well.
Okay.
So moving right along. Anybody have anything new on that? And these will be ongoing topics. Every meeting we'll talk about this particular stuff.
Richard, I wanted to ask if it had been talked about leaving the brochure and the letter available in the library, at the offices of Inland Wetlands or P&Z. I don't know what you all think about the availability of that material there.
I think it's a great idea. I personally, going forward, I could envision, brochure holders on the wall, on the desk, with a QR code on these to get the electronic version of that. But I think the more we have this stuff, when I've gone to town halls in the past, around personal, there's a brochure that's useful for me, I grab it. And so, we may have to restock those, but yeah, I totally agree with that. So, we'll, get together. We can talk. I can talk to, the town departments. If they don't have a budget, maybe we can spend, I don't know what, $20 or whatever these cost at Staples to put a holder, zoning, and engineering, wherever it makes sense. But let's, think, offline, people interested, email the group, Janet, Dean, myself, anybody else for these brochures. And Dean has a really quick deadline coming up.
When you mentioned the library, I don't know, I can't speak for what Trumbull Library is going to be doing. But the statewide library summer reading theme for public libraries is going to be about conservation.
Okay.
So there might be some opportunities for some tie-in for some of these ideas. Certainly promoting some of the ideas about planting native plants and, planting around bodies of water, as an important part, of conservation is sort of a pretty straightforward pitch for people, I think.
Yeah.
It might be something, so there might be an opportunity there. I'm happy to reach out to the folks at the library and see what they're planning for summer reading.
Well, that'd be great, Kate. Appreciate it.
Sure.
And also ask if they have something, a holder somewhere for brochures. I don't know what the number would be, 5 to 10. We don't have 10. And if they don't have one, then, I can see if we can get some budget for that. We probably can. Because we already have brochures and we'll be updating these, but this is really important, I think. Let's see, on old business number 2. This is year 2000 trees for Trumbull. Not sure if you saw Tim's email. Let's see, I have it here. Let's see. And, Tim had sent a map that Dimitri had done. And, Dimitri is kind of the lead on the trees. We have the budget, and Dimitri is the one that oversees the planning of these. And so the plan is to plant, let's see, 15, that's 26, 30, I guess 75 trees and plants, a total cost of $10,590 in Twin Brooks. Tim, do you have any more? I know we thought about an Indian Ledge. What are your thoughts in talking with Dimitri?
Yeah, I met with Dimitri last week. Dimitri, if you don't know people, that he's the superintendent of parks. He was very instrumental in getting our first batch of trees put in down at Twin Brooks Park. I was misunderstood. I thought we were going to do a next planting at Indian Ledge, but we're going to continue with some native evergreens down to finish the plantings down at Twin Brooks. I met with Dimitri last week. He came up with a rough plan. I need to walk the site with him and try to, kind of just come up with a consensus. I think it'd be a good plan. We can finish down at Twin Brooks, and the idea is that we eventually come up with some sort of plan that the town is accepting, the DPW and the Parks Department, in regards to planting on town right-of-ways, possibly having a co-program with the homeowner about them taking care of the tree or watering it for the first couple of years. Maybe a hybrid like Fairfield does, but there's a lot of kinks to be worked out. So we've come up with our next phase, which will be at Twin Brooks, and then, you know, the program will be ongoing until, and this would hopefully with Sarah's help, we can come up with a survey to see what the residents want. But that's the plan. I don't know if anybody wants to be involved with me on this. I'd be happy to have people along. The next you know, step would be to walk through down at Twin Brooks so people can understand what we're doing. And that will happen sooner than later. Now, Richard, I don't know, do we have to have a vote on this plan to approve it via the commission, I would imagine?
Yeah, well, I think it would probably help. And let's see. Now, this was an email. I don't know if all of you have seen the email that let's see, Tim sent was today, I believe.
So did everybody have a chance to take a look at it?
Tim, I did not have a chance yet to take a look at it, but I'd be happy to join you. in this.
Okay. So yeah, it depends on Dimitri's schedule. The idea is like we did last year. I'd really like to get the trees in the ground by the end of March. It's a lot better that way. It's before he gets really busy. We order the trees from an approved nursery. He gets them, they put them in the ground, they get them watered. And it's a lot easier than waiting until April or May. He gets busy with cutting grass and all this other stuff. So if he can get the trees in the ground, they're done. We keep them watered through the year. He'll keep them watered, and he can move on to his other aspects of his job. So, but you know, Richard, if you want to wait till the next meeting to vote yay or nay, but like I said, it's a timing issue. I'm trying to get these trees ordered and moved on with this. So I don't know if you want to take a vote now or wait till the next meeting.
What is the deadline? What would that be waiting too long? I mean, I can put it up on my screen. Although I'm concerned, I lost my Zoom connection when I shared. It must be my bandwidth is not great.
When is our next meeting?
It is, let's see, I wrote it down here.
It is March 27th.
Thanks, Barbara.
I mean, I'd rather have a decision before then, so I don't know if we take a vote now or we can take a vote to survey. I don't know, Richard. Like I said, we wait till the 27th. He starts to get busy with other stuff. That's the only thing.
Yeah. By the way, I'd like to be on that sidewalk also. I should be back before March 15th, and we could wait for. But I would, what I would suggest, Tim, if you think these plants make sense, and people didn't dispute doing this, we could take a vote on it now. I mean, I'm not a tree expert. I like the concept. Are these species, are they natives, or at least they're not invasives, of course?
Yeah, they're all native. You know, he really tries to do that. So, you know, I also trust his judgment, not blindly, but, you know, I've worked with Dimitri for years, and they've been very cooperative with their labor. So that's a key thing for us. What people can do is maybe they can vote on us doing the site walk and approving it. Would that work?
Yeah, it would work for me.
Okay, so
Yes, that sounds good for me.
I would make a motion that we vote, and if Richard approves of myself and Edward, that the commission approves our ability to make that decision, I guess.
Yeah, I would second it.
Okay.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
So it's I don't have it in front of me, but it looked like it was mostly holly and cedar trees. And is there a disadvantage of being, you know, so concentrated on two species, or is there an advantage?
Well, I think there's I don't have it. I think there's more there. I think there's maybe 3 or 4. There's I don't have
15 on the holly, 11 on the cedar, 45 hydrangeas.
Yeah.
And oh, forgive me, I try so hard with native plants, but I'm terrible with Latin. I always have to Google it. And there's 4 of another plant that I have to Google so I can get the common name.
Oh, so it's hydrangeas were the
If you'd
plentiful.
like me to
Yeah.
share my screen, I have it here.
Hydrangea quercifolia, which is a native plant. These are also very durable plants. Once they become established, they're, in 50 years, everybody, well, maybe not by then, come back, they'll be there, And he's also trying to, control the invasives down in that site. So it's one of the objectives also.
Yeah.
Can I ask just a perhaps picayune question about the native plant issue? Just because we're not super strict about that. Like, I think the hydrangea is tends to be native south of here, but it's, we're saying native to this side of the continent is kind of where we're at.
Yeah, I'm not going to get
Right.
extremely
No,
strict with native plants. It's pretty much if they're successful in the area. Plus, native is relative. We're starting to get plants that are growing here that wouldn't grow before, yada, yada. So nothing exotic. Of course, we wouldn't plant anything invasive, something that's going to really do well in the area that we're going to plant it for.
No, and I'm not, and that is not meant to say, I am all for, particularly with climate change, I know that things are starting to shift. And certainly something like the hydrangeas are gorgeous, and that's a selling point right there. So I was just curious, that was all.
Yeah, some people are really strict about that, but I'm one for, we just want it to be successful and not dominate the area and fit in with the landscape and do well. Because in an urban setting, which the park is, you want to get them established. You don't want to have to do a lot of maintenance to them, and you don't want to add to, the town's workload as far as, having to maintain these.
Yeah, I think, there's at least 4 species, so if disease came through, it wouldn't likely wipe out everything. One advantage of Twin Brooks is probably one of the more popular parks. We've already planted trees, and I'd like to, make it a goal to plant put some simple QR codes here, and we can talk about that in the future. All the QR code does is the simplest thing. They don't cost anything if you don't want to track if people click the QR, but you can generate a QR code, which simply, you've seen these boxes, and it simply links to a website. So we have the information on a website but the requirement for the town is the town must own the website. Then it would it's one more way to educate people on things. And I think Dimitri's gonna have a sign, which hasn't been put up yet. Tim, do you know when that sign's gonna go up? Did he mention that to you yet?
He mentioned it, but to tell you the truth, our meeting was so long, I think it went over my head. I think it was soon.
Okay.
Yeah. And
of course,
to add, because hopefully we're not going to use up all the budget, there's an opportunity. He was supposed to send me the landscape plans for Long Hill Green, to do some plantings there, whether it be pollinator pathway or, some additional trees. I would like to do that. That's in my neighborhood. And we can also walk that site or look at the plants if we have some monies left over, because the idea is I want to use the money. We want to use it by July 1st to exhaust all the funds. So if we need to do some plantings there, we can do some plantings at Long Hill Green.
yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
I mean, I can envision that's a small park, so I can envision pollinator, plants that might be interesting. And again, a QR code there, people will occasionally click on, especially younger people will, click on the QR. For educational, it's one way that we can educate people on things. So it's one more way to reach people. We also have, we have Trumbull TV, we have social media. I'm the only geek who's not on social media. But the more ways we can reach people, the better off that we'll be.
So can we just take a vote on that? The first motion was if the commission agrees that Richard and Edward and I can make a decision on the plantings on the Twin Brooks, that we can go ahead and do that.
I'm fine with that.
Absolutely.
Everybody in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right, the motion passes.
Okay. And nays are perfectly acceptable. But I think moving ahead is more important. And I mean, I'm not a tree expert, but it looks, we got 4 species, they're not invasives, and, you know, our experts, you know, Tim has looked at this, and Dimitri, importantly, we want to make him, you know, he's an asset to us. So we need to be sure that we make him happy as much as we can.
Right, and then
Yeah,
on
for
another
moving
note, Dimitri is been assigned as a new tree warden. He has
Oh.
2 assistants, I think. At least he has 1, so he's getting up to speed with the line clearing that's going on in town. So he's going to be another conduit for us to hopefully come up with a town right-of-way tree planting system. And once you get these systems in place, move it forward, and every year try to get street trees planted via either the town or a private contractor.
So stay tuned, folks.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. Let's see, 2D on here, just, you know, tree protection, UI tree trimming. I think maybe we'll just table that to our next meeting, but this is just something besides planting trees and parks. You know, we also, we've talked about when UI trims trees, sometimes more trimming is done than is needed. But, you know, people whose property they're trimming on, you know, do have some, you know, some rights. And if UI is too aggressive, then we want to make people aware of that. Anything more we need to say about that?
Yeah, well, no, the homeowner has a lot of rights. If the tree is deemed hazardous, the utility company has the right to take it down. But the homeowner has a lot of rights with the trees that are on their property. You know, either not being touched or to be pruned a certain way or what have you. So people they really do have rights with the tree pruning program.
Good. So let's see, then moving down. Number 3, important town sites, you know, 201 Old Dyke Road. I think we pretty much talked about this. I don't know if anybody or Janet or anybody has any last minute things to say about Old Dyke Road area, you know, Pinewood Lake. And this is, you know, an ongoing process, and it will be for a while.
I just wanted to make it clear because I heard somebody say that some of these questions that I had weren't clear. 201 Old Dyke Road is now for sale. So my question is, does the Conservation Commission have any role to play with regard to the violations that occurred there going forward or not? I don't know if they follow the new owner or if it's a blank slate. Those are questions that I mean, maybe I can find out, but I'm just putting in front of you because that was a clear-cut area. I would appreciate your involvement in 208 Old Dyke Road because that's also going to be discussed on Tuesday, and you guys often have great ideas. That would be very welcomed for that issue. And we've already discussed West Misha.
Yeah. And as far as the Pacific, you know, responsibilities of the new homeowner, if it's already, trees have already been cut, you know, for better or for worse, it's a past thing. So I don't know, it might be a legal thing. If it's already, trees have already been cut, unless inland wetlands wants to pursue a violation, they don't always do that. The town doesn't seem to be really aggressive as much as I personally would like them to be on these things. My feeling would be if a homeowner does something, you know, digs a hole in the wetlands, but he does it out of ignorance, it's not a big deal, and they fix it, it should not be, you know, a monetary thing, but a contractor who knowingly does things, cuts trees down, you know, that's a bigger thing. So, but what we can do, we can't require them to do anything, but we can certainly make our voices heard with inland wetlands and zoning. Zoning and inland wetlands are the 2 departments that we have, you know, input to, mainly inland wetlands. So we can, you know, voice our concerns, and then they do what they're going to do with it. Next thing we, you know, mentioned the March 27th meeting. We'll try to do that in person unless there's some new disease. You know, we'll plan on in person. people are certainly, free to wear masks at these meetings. Nobody should care if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. I've wore, a mask at some meetings. So feel free if you want to protect yourself. There's nothing wrong with wearing a mask if we meet in person.
Hey, Richard, I gotta sign off. So when are you back?
I'm back around the 13th to the 15th. We may spend a couple more days with my stepdaughter in Vienna, Virginia, but around the 13th. So if you put down, if possible, March 15th or after, I'm pretty free.
All right, so just get in touch with me when you get back.
Okay, will do.
Thank you,
If you
everybody.
want to schedule it, or propose a date with Dimitri, I can put it down that way as well.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So I guess the next thing is make a motion to adjourn. Does somebody want to make a
I
motion to
I
adjourn?
make the motion to adjourn.
Okay, let me second it. Okay, I see Dean on there. So I guess we adjourned at, 8:35.
Thanks,
okay.
Richard. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. And if anybody, has any topics for a future agenda, email them to me. Barbara is the one. I add an input to agenda and Barbara distributes them. She's our official, clerk who does this. And so just feel free to do that. So I guess we're done. Thanks, everybody.
Sarah, I sent you an email.
Okay. Thanks. We'll see y'all next month.
Night.
Not
Bye.
sooner.
Thanks.
Good night.